Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Monday. My name is Nick Reed. There were a lot of those little scooters running throughout the country. The
Oh,
No Kings.
yes. Oh, yes.
I, I don't know. I saw like a lot of people footage of all of these left wing nuts. And I mean, for a lot of them, it was so remarkably absent of anyone other than white people. And not that you aren't, let's put it this way, certainly was not in any way, shape, or form a reflection of the actual racial makeup of our society. I remember during the first Trump term, anytime there was a photo of a gathering of Trump related individuals, I shouldn't say anytime, but oftentimes there would be commentary about, you notice how few people of color there are. There was one in particular, and this may have actually been post his first administration. I think it was during the last election, because it turned out they zoomed the photo in so that people wouldn't see in the photo the people of color to make it look like it was all white people.
Of
And
course.
yeah, and here you have these rallies where it's just as far as the eye can see, old white people, no recognition of the disproportionately high number of white people that are a part of these No King rallies. So the party of the Klan all over the country having their little tantrum fest. And as best I can tell, today is just like Thursday and Friday, and after the last No King's Day.
I was going to say, I think it worked because we don't have a
Yeah,
king.
we still don't have one. Although
Good
Trump,
job.
did you see the meme that Trump of
Yes.
him flying a like some sort of fighter jet, and then clearly AI, and he's wearing a crown and dumping manure on all of these people, and it's so farcical that these people portray him as a dictator. And one, of course, the fact that they're allowed to have these protests prove that he's not a king or a dictator. But he doesn't even get mad about it. Like he laughs about it. He puts out funny memes about it. It's almost as if he's really leaning into the point that clearly not a dictator, not a king, because I'm laughing about this and putting out funny AI videos as opposed to, executing them, which they increasingly support for their political opposition. And we'll talk a bit about that. The normalization of violence is, I think, within the Democrat Party at this point, we can all agree that we're there. I'm not sure that there really is much pushback on that acceptance any longer. And Virginia, the attorney general race there is a perfect example of that. You have a Democrat running for attorney general, talked about fantasizing the murder of political opposition, the fantasizing about the political opposition's young children dying, and calling for the killing of more police officers in order to cut down on the amount of shootings. And not a single Democrat withdrew their endorsement. In fact, they just had over the weekend a unity event with that involved that attorney general candidate. Federalist has a piece where um, the journalist from the Federalist interviewed an average Democrat voter in Virginia who essentially shrugged his shoulders and like, well, it's a tough world out there. This is what you got to sometimes be tough and fight. And if that means calling for the assassination of political opposition, so be it. That's called the normalization of violence. And many of us have noted that is what here we would end up with if the Democrat Party continued to embrace the violent rhetoric and excuse or just sort of gloss over the actual acts of violence. And what, if you've noticed this weekend, and of course we've got numerous examples of it, particularly amongst elected Democrats and actual Democrat activists at official Democrat events, the rhetoric that it has become clear over the past year plus that fuels the assassination attempts, that fuels the actual assassinate, or whether it's an attempt on Trump or the success of assassinating Charlie Kirk or going to Christian institutions and schools and murdering as many white Christians as possible. In their writings, text messages, and so forth, it is clear that they're doing it because they believe they are attacking Nazis and fascists. And instead of the discontinuation of the usage of that verbiage, as Democrat Senator Fetterman has called for within his own party, they're doing more of it. There's only one reason for that, because they like the results that they are getting. If there's some other explanation, now, of course, they're not going to admit this. Generally speaking, evil does not admit it's evil. John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer, these individuals, when they weren't in the privacy of their own home committing the horrific acts of evil, they weren't out there telling everyone, oh, yes, this is what I do, this is what I believe, this is who I am, this is what I support. They pretended as if they were something else. And for the most part, you're not going to have these Democrats out there that are utilizing this rhetoric say, oh, yeah, I know what I'm doing clearly. I'm attempting to get the same results that we have successfully gotten to a degree over the past couple of years with this rhetoric. They're not going to acknowledge that. But any thinking person recognizes when verbiage is used and then people who kill or carry out acts of violence say, I'm doing it because of the things that this person over here said. Here's why I did it. It's the same reason. That's pretty straightforward. So they know. Why else would they ramp up that rhetoric? Why else would they? There was I think it was in Michigan or Minnesota, there was a Democrat unity event, and they had people posing with the 8647 stuff, the symbolism for the assassination of Trump, people posing for it. In Wisconsin, there's a story. At some event, there was a Democrat booth, and this got out because of the parents of the child that was targeted by this. There was a small child that was given a bracelet encouraging the assassination of Donald Trump. This was an official Democrat booth at some event. They have so normalized violence that I don't think it even crosses their mind that this should be offensive any longer. And to them, it clearly isn't. And all over the No Kings events, guillotines, and calls for assassination of Trump. The Democrat Party is the party of violence, of encouraging violence, supporting violence, cultivating violence. And I don't think at this point you can have people actively involved in the Democrat Party and say, well, but that's not who I am. Well, that's who the party is. You can't join the Klan and say, but I'm not a racist. Well, if you're paying dues and you're out there trying to increase membership within the Klan and out there campaigning on behalf of the Klan and as a Klan member, you can't then say you're not racist. Because if you're not racist, you wouldn't be part of the Klan. And if you don't support violence at this point, I don't know that you could be a member of the Democrat Party. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line 417-447-KSGF. Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today it'll be sunny and breezy with a high near 76. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 44. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 66. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 70.
You know, it's funny to hear that report and listing the reasons for the No Kings protest. And one of the things cited there was the cuts to healthcare, which there are none. I mean, this isn't a thing that's happening. Now, when it came to Obamacare and the subsidies for the wealthier Americans, the Democrats set that to expire. That was something that they did. That's not anything that's being cut. That was something that ended because of the Democrats. When they voted on it, they voted for it to be temporary. That was them. This is pretty straightforward and clear. But you could go to any, and this was done, any of these No Kings rallies. This is part of the hilarity of it. And you get 80,000 different answers as to why they are there. I saw one, and just against fascism. And an actual journalist, which means that he wasn't paid by one of the major outlets, or paid to be a journalist, I'm sure, said, what's your definition of fascism? Well, it's just not listening to the will of the people. I'm thinking, the last time the will of the people was activated, they voted for Donald Trump. So who's not listening to the will of the people? Seems to be the No Kings folks. Because the will of the people, that's what an election is. That's how this works. I know that Democrats have lost touch with that, given that their party hasn't really allowed them to even pick their own candidate since prior to Obama. The last one, even when they did, of course, let the voters pick, they just overturned it and gave it to Kamala anyway. So I know that it is increasingly perhaps difficult for Democrats to recognize and understand the point of elections. But the will of the people is at play here. Just because it isn't your will, just because you are, according to the last election, in the minority, doesn't mean it didn't count. You are the ones who are not listening to the will of the people. So for those of you who believe that is the definition of fascism, you sort of paint yourself into a corner there, don't you? Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. Any home loan needs that you may have. These are the folks we talked with Alex Carricker on Friday while we were out broadcasting at Scramblers, the Friday Road Show, and this is one of the many things that we talked about is just that advice, utilizing them for information and all of the misunderstandings that are out there, misinformation, not necessarily nefarious misinformation, but people don't know or people speculate, and the people speculating aren't there on the ground like the characters in their team and know exactly what's going on and what impact certain decisions are going to make or potentially make, and speculatory aspects of things. But when it comes down to it, everyone's situation's different. So while for your neighbor, it may be the perfect time to make that move if they're thinking about it, your situation might be different and call for a different response. But the point is, they are not simply there like so many financial institutions. Let us know when you're ready to go ahead and get that home loan. We'll be ready for you. They're there to help you make that determination in terms of providing you any and all information that you possibly need and want. And then if you do make the decision that, you know what, now's the time to do it, they can get started. Or better yet, you can go ahead and get them all your information, and that way everything's locked and loaded and ready to go. So when you do make the decision, you're ready to pull the trigger, that part of it is already done. I want a greathomeloan.com because you do. While a bunch of left-wing retired folks and a smattering of others were holding their temper tantrum fest all across the country, you had another little portion of America, a pocket of America and American culture, and that was with the Marines. And J.D. Vance went to rally with Marines at Camp Pendleton in California on Saturday. As you can imagine, he had an extremely warm reception, which is just so odd because I can't get out of my mind because of how beautiful her voice is, Claire McCaskill. When Pete Hegseth was during that period of time, the confirmation battle in which the establishment was doing everything they could in order to try and derail his confirmation, and Claire McCaskill talking about how people are just going to be fleeing the military. Because, among other reasons, Pete Hegseth used to like to drink and got drunk a couple of times. In fact, I should try and find that audio. We laughed about how ridiculous. I mean, what a stupid woman. Just how stupid. This was our U.S. Senator for how many terms? Oh, people, they were just the military. They would look for reasons to drop out. No, I mean, the association of somebody in the military and drinking. I mean, recruitment's going to just be plummeting. And, of course, the contrary has occurred. This was the welcome of J.D. Vance to the podium at the event on Saturday.
Marines! Marines! God bless you, Marines. God bless you, Camp Pendleton. It is so much fun and such an honor to be out here to celebrate 250 years of United States Marines.
Isn't it so sad how low morale is?
Honestly.
I mean, it's so heartbreaking to hear the left being correct when it comes to the morale within our military and just how devastated you could just hear it.
And recruitment's down.
Oh, it's heartbreaking to see the way that our military has been destroyed from within. Here is J.D. Vance talking about a couple of different things, some of which was regarding the Democrats' attempt to prevent those serving within the military from being paid.
Of course, Marines, I bring greetings today from our Commander-in-Chief, Donald J. Trump, and he wanted me to tell each and every single one of you that he's proud of you, that he loves you, and that despite the Schumer shutdown, he is going to do everything he can to make sure you get paid exactly as you deserve. Now, I know we're here to talk about the Marine Corps, but I got to get just a little political because congressional Democrats seem to want to keep the government shut down, even though it would mean that a lot of you would not get your paycheck. But as I told the president just a couple of days ago, I said, sir, we have got to figure out how to pay these Marines, both for their sake, but also, of course, because if we don't pay our enlisted Marines, every bar in Southern California is going to go out of business, and we don't want that.
Oh, I thought that was particularly humorous, given Claire McCaskill's comments in the past. So as I'm watching, and listen, we've got a diverse country as we should. I mean, despite the fact the left wants and almost demands complete ideological compliance, so that we are all just one North Korean style ideological belief system. But that is, most people recognize that is not a good thing. It's not a positive thing. And that while culturally, what has been the strength, it isn't the diversity as much as the fact that so many people with diverse backgrounds are unified in the fact that we are all Americans. And of course, we've seen the left really try to break that apart and splinter that apart. But I see all of those people who have voluntarily enlisted and just the pride that they have and the culture that is there and the response they have to this administration. And then you look at these losers all across this country that I would argue most have no real purpose or meaning in their life, which is part of the reason they do these things. It makes them feel as if they have some purpose. Now, it doesn't actually accomplish anything. Nothing's accomplished. But it gives them the sense of I'm doing something. I have a place in this world. I'm making a difference. Now, they continue to, of course, be unhappy because it's a very short-lived feeling because there's no actual meaningful result to it. So the recognition that there is no real meaning to these efforts in terms of actual results. But the juxtapositioning of the Americans that have volunteered to enlist and that are standing up there, and that reception of J.D. Vance, of the Trump administration, versus what you see with some of these lunatics that are like, men wearing dresses and furries that were showing up, I think specifically at the D.C. event, and these inflatable animal costumes. And of the two crowds, given how much we're told the left cares about the diversity of looks and skin color, the very pro-American, warmly receiving the Trump administration, these military people, far more diverse in terms of ethnic background and race than far more diverse than what you see with these left-wing protesters. And I think that's an interesting thing to note as well. Traffic update coming up here in just a couple of moments. Quick break. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies. It'll be breezy as well with a high near 76. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 44. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 66. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 70.
We were playing audio of J.D. Vance and his extremely enthusiastic welcome by the Marines at Camp Pendleton in California. And I know a lot of people will say, well, I mean, of course they're going to do that. I mean, they have no choice because, Trump's the commander-in-chief. Just go back and watch the reception of Joe Biden at these types of events or Kamala Harris. You'll see. You'll see. The enthusiasm is quite different, and all of this is just so hilarious because one of the things that we were told when Trump was tapping Hegseth to be the Secretary of War now was that he was going to be so bad for morale, and one of the leading voices with the claims of how bad this was going to be for the military and the morale of the military was Missouri's own Claire McCaskill, and here she was at the time on MSNBC.
Back to a point that my colleague made a few minutes ago about the fact that this is a volunteer force. If you have scandals at the Department of Defense, if you have a leader that has engaged in public drunkenness and dishonorable behavior, and frankly, remember, even committing adultery is a violation of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Much less serial adultery, much less dancing on the stage with strippers. These are all violations of the military code that you can, in fact, be prosecuted for under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. How are they going to recruit people to come into this military? How are young men and women going to go, yeah, that's where I want to go. I want to lay my life on the line to follow that guy into battle.
Well, clearly they do. I mean, here's the thing. I don't know if she's really that dumb or if she's on MSNBC and she knows that, or in her assessment is that audience, they don't know any different. And you just have to say things that they're going to eat up and that's going to fuel their anger and their need to have somebody validate their belief system. Because who in their right, like, have you ever even seen Top Gun? Like, what for both Top Guns? One of the, most iconic scenes in these movies is that they're in a bar getting drunk. Like, is there any movie that has existed in modern history regarding military that doesn't at some point involve drinking? Or, even Stripes, for Pete's sakes. You have mud wrestling with women in bikinis, and that she's just so dumb, such a dumb human being. She is proof that you can be dumb and get elected as a U.S. Senator. She's not obviously the only example of it, but close to home, she certainly is. But to be out there, what an embarrassment. The military, that find out that somebody leading the military has been associated with drinking and strippers? My gosh. Oh, they'll never want to join if that happens. Clutching her pearls. Meanwhile, recruitment records through the roof. J.D. Vance also spoke on, just about the overall keeping of focus. Let's see. Actually, no, I don't have that audio after all. Okay, that's fine. It was the least interesting of the audio, I should say. But it was a great, it's just great to see the military and the members of the military genuinely and authentically pumped up, excited, and motivated under the current leadership. And when you look at the previous administration and even, again, the reception of, be it at the time Joe Biden or Kamala Harris at any of these events, it was clearly subdued. And it was largely because, again, the focus of the military, instead of being a point of pride culturally for this country, and individuals that had mission instilled in them. It became this cultural playground for the Democrats to essentially experiment on those who had joined up in the military, be it by promoting transgenderism and drag shows. And while countries like China and Russia were putting out propaganda, recruitment for the military that was all about strength and what the left calls toxic masculinity, the Biden administration was running ads about, I remember one, it was a freaking cartoon, for Pete's sakes, and about like my two moms, and it was just the most bizarre, weird stuff that was the reflection of the administration putting in charge in certain capacities the military by social activists who had absolutely no interest whatsoever in having a military that was there for the purpose of defending this country and protecting its people. And you can see the difference between a lost, rudderless military that, in addition to being used as a social experiment playground, was utilized militarily in a way that was embarrassing. The Afghanistan withdrawal, and not just being forced to be put in this position by leadership that is a humiliation to the United States, but a betrayal at the same time. The congressional testimony of some of our own that were there, that the one sniper in particular that said he testified. He had a shot on the bomber and was told to stand down. Had the shot. Knew that the guy was suspicious, suspected that he was a bomber, and he was told, don't shoot him. And how many Americans, not to mention innocent Afghan civilians, lost their lives because of it. And you just think of what it was that they were put through as a military. And then you throw in the DEI stuff. You join. You think, I'm going to find a family. I'm going to find camaraderie. I'm going to find this common cause, a common purpose. And you get in there and you're fed all this divisiveness. Having yourself pitted against others because of skin color, learning about white privilege. And being told that if you are someone who is actually on the mission because you love the country and the Constitution and don't tread on me, you're a potential domestic terrorist. And you can only imagine those in the military that were Trump supporters. We know how they were treated. So it should come as no surprise to go from that 180-degree turn of and I say rudderless military, rudderless in the context of serving the purpose of protecting all of us, and instead focusing on the divisions of DEI and transgenderism and all of these other things, to leadership that knows and appreciates and understands and gives a purpose, a noble purpose. It should be no wonder that just with the snap of a fingers, the change of that leadership, we went from a military that was lowering standards because it was so desperate to just meet recruitment goals, to raising standards and still exceeding recruitment goals. There's rhetoric. There's all the cackling nut jobs like Claire McCaskill out there. This is what's going to happen, and oh my gosh, and then there's reality. There's all of us that live in reality, and then there are all of the people that live in this weird fantasy world that have no connection to reality. And over the weekend, they were pretty easy to identify. You may have seen them lining streets. Odds are they were retired age, they were white, and holding poorly made signs. Well, in some areas, they were professionally made. which we'll get to that later, the funding for all of this. And so many of these people are useful idiots, and they really truly are by definition. There's a lot of money flowing to this, a lot of anti-Semitic money flowing into funding these. There were anti-Semitic organizations weaving into this, hence the Palestinian flags at many of the events that were flying. And so you do have a combination within these protests of giant money coming from billionaires, and much of it is George Soros and Soros organizations, anti-Semites, and then you do have just the complete useful idiots that have no clue and no concept. These individuals are easy to identify by just going up and asking them questions like, why do you think you're allowed to protest if Trump is a king and a dictator? Or what is fascism? Or were you upset when Obama was deporting people and separating families? Just very simple, basic questions. You can find these useful idiots very, very easily. They expose themselves. Generally, they wrap up the conversations with, we're finished here, and then they walk away. Let's hear what Barbara Babs had to say about her experience at Pinnaker Honda just a few weeks ago. I cannot say enough good things about Pinnaker Honda from the receptionist who greeted us as we came in to the sales consultant, product specialist, finance specialist who assisted us with our purchase. Our experience was pleasant to the extreme. Baylor Alexander was friendly, knowledgeable, and professional, answering any questions we had, some that we didn't even think to ask. Justin Cartwright went over all of the features of the Honda Ridgeline we purchased, making sure we knew where all of the controls were and how to adjust any settings to our preferences. We were treated courteously and professionally. The process was easy and efficient. We left happy with our purchase and our experience. This is customer service at its finest. Thank you, Pinnaker Honda. And let's be honest, back in the day, it seemed as if there was a lot more wiggle room for deals to be made than there are oftentimes today. Customer service really is largely so often what defines vehicle experiences. People who complain about, or the stereotypes that oftentimes car dealers get, it's not because of pricing, it's because of treatment. And that customer experience is one of the areas that the Pinnaker family really shines at their area locations. Branson, Republic, and of course Pinnaker Honda in Springfield. And that's why you get reviews like that. And so many people that become long-term loyal customers. Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. The FBI launched an investigation after Secret Service discovered a hunting stand with a direct line to where President Trump exits Air Force One in Palm Beach, according to Fox News. The hunting stand was reportedly set up months ago. FBI Director Kash Patel told Fox News prior to the president's return to West Palm Beach, USSS, the United States Secret Service, discovered what appeared to be an elevated hunting stand within sight of the Air Force One landing zone. No individuals were located at the scene. The FBI has since taken the investigatory lead, flying in resources to collect all evidence from the scene and deploying our cell phone analytic capabilities. Fox News reported that the U.S. Secret Service uncovered the suspicious hunting stand with the direct line of sight where Trump again, exits Air Force One at Palm Beach International Airport. Agents found the stand Thursday. The United States Secret Service Chief of Communications, Anthony Guglielmi, also confirmed that the organization is working closely with the FBI as well as law enforcement in Palm Beach County. He said agents discovered the hunting stand during their advanced security prep prior to Trump's arrival in Palm Beach, saying there was no impact to any movements and no individuals were present or involved at the location. Kash Patel said the Secret Service spotted this suspicious stand near the Air Force One zone in Palm Beach. Of course, this isn't the first time Trump has been in danger of left-wing snipers and so forth, so we're obviously aware of the past assassination attempts. Now, the first bits of information that came out regarding this, one of which it was, well, it had been there for some time. Now, the revelation here that it had been there for a few months is a bit more specific. When the first reports were out that it had been there for some time, that to me meant one of two things. Either they could tell because it was very weathered. It was, you could just sometimes tell by seeing something that has been there for years, for example, or they were aware of whom was responsible for it and then was able to have a conversation with that person, and that person said, oh yeah, I set it up at this particular period of time, and they were confident that that was accurate. Now, the fact that the latest reports suggest that this has been there for just a few months suggests to me that they were not able to visually see or tell, oh, this clearly has been there sometime. So how do they know how that to me right now is a point of interest? How do they know how long it has been there? If it isn't because of weathering, again, potentially the knowledge of who set it up, or perhaps they find it, and then maybe, depending on where it is, are there any sort of security cameras that, while maybe not zoomed in enough to see who put it up, but to notice activity, do they go back months and see in that particular area there was some activity that suggested them, oh, this is clearly, you could tell when something is being set up in that particular area. This is yet to be told. Now, I'm also interested to know whether or not Air Force One has landed with Trump on it at that airport since they believe it has been set up. Or is this, a situation in which Air Force One hasn't landed there, since it has been up, or since they believe it's been up. And I think that makes a difference because, you're already hearing, how many times is this sort of thing going to happen? How many times? Well, to me, just based off the information that is public, if Air Force One has not landed at that particular location, since they have determined it has been set up, and if their determination is accurate, and a sweep was being done because, okay, Air Force One is going to be making a visit here, and so we need to sweep, and then they found it, to me, that's a success. That isn't, how many more, times are we going to miss these things? Because to me, that seems the opposite. That, oh no, this is exactly what the Secret Service is supposed to do: show up prior to a Trump arrival and find something that is suspicious. And this is a success based off of the information that's available at this time. So again, it could be something that is completely benign, but. And I'll also say, I don't know that there's any, or I haven't come across any information that indicates, is this an area where hunting is even allowed? Is this a part of it? And I don't know that area. I'm sure that wouldn't be very difficult to figure out, of course, being that the West Palm Beach airport is, something that's, obviously people fly in and out of all the time. And so I'm just not familiar with that area enough to know whether that would be a reasonable thing to expect. There's forest that is predominant in that area in which hunting is done and allowed. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. But there are a lot of unanswered questions here. Right now, the thing I am most interested in is how is it that they determined it has been there for a few months? And perhaps those revelations will come as soon as today. We'll see. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. One of the questions of the Pyramid Roofing Company text line: how many security sweeps missed that tree stand? And again, that's something I don't know at this point. How many visits were made, if any, prior to what they are saying they believe is the tree stand being there? They've said that they believe it was there for several months. How they know that, I don't know that information has been made available yet. I haven't seen it. One of the alterations they did make for security purposes because of that discovered tree stand was having Trump use these smaller stairs so that he would be less exposed as he entered Air Force One, though I suspect that the left will use this to try to claim that he somehow has see, proof he's sick. There's something wrong with him. Okay. Regarding Marines, as a Marine, we are pretty proud to say we started out in a bar, Tin Tavern, to be exact. Tin Tavern. This is I think this is the first recruitment center for what was during the Revolutionary War, the birth of the Marines, and that's in reference to audio we played from the Hegseth confirmation period, and Claire McCaskill claiming that who would want to enlist in the Marines if somebody like Hegseth's in charge, given his known drunkenness at times in life. Okay. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, welcome everyone. Any of the show that you do miss, fear not, podcast at ksgf.com, the app, Spotify, iTunes, elsewhere. We actually have it much easier to locate at ksgf.com. Not that it was the most difficult thing to find, but less steps is easier. And there's just a number of reasons. Of course, people visit the website. You visit the website. Like 98% of it, I'd say, is, well, maybe not that high, but the majority is streaming online and listening to podcasts. And so when you go to ksgf.com on your desktop, or if you're not using the app for some reason and you're just going directly to the website from your phone, the Listen Live is at the top. Well, you used to have to go to the options menu to get into the podcast section. Now it's right there, front and center. So I don't know how that shows on the app. Does that show differently on the app, or is it still the same on the app?
It's still the same.
Okay, all right. So on the app still, which is relatively easy there. So the change will be if you visit it on the desktop, you can find it there. But I know many of you get it from iTunes and Spotify and maybe some other locations as well. We should be talking with Congressman Burleson coming up. We'll get his thoughts on the No Kings. I love it. It keeps going, there were this many thousand people. Well, there were, 77 plus million that voted for Trump. So, the numbers, I don't know that you want to play. That's what matters is the actual election. See, that's what matters. And kings don't get elected, and Trump did. So there's a lot about your argument that it's just laughable. And this is why people don't take you seriously. And this is also why they eventually, let's be honest, resort to violence, because they don't have the ability to make coherent arguments. They do not have the truth on their side. Have you seen these people try to engage in a discussion over the actual facts? They generally just walk away, or they scream. They name call. They have just been turned into these mindless entities that are filled with rage. And when you can't get your way and you can't articulate, and I would imagine that would be frustrating if you are told you're right about things and you believe you're right about things, but when somebody challenges you, you don't know why you're right, other than you just know that you are. Somebody in that position, it's not long before one or more of those individuals are going to try and just kill or act out in a violent manner against those with whom they disagree, because they don't know what else to do. It's why toddlers scream and yell and throw things and, hit their own head against the wall, because they don't have the ability yet, when they're angry or want something, to speak and to articulate it. And that's why tantrums occur. A tantrum occurs because of the inability to communicate what it is that one is thinking or feeling. And when you're a toddler, even once you do master the ability to speak, you still don't have the cognitive abilities yet as a toddler to articulate your thoughts and to sit down and have a conversation and to counterpoint and to listen to, mom or dad who tells you have to clean your room or you can't eat cake for dinner and you want cake for dinner. But as a toddler, you don't have the ability to list out the reasons why cake for dinner or candy for breakfast is a good thing. And so this is why they scream and pound and yell, and it's called a tantrum. And a significant portion of our population, they have had their abilities to articulate and form thoughts in which they can engage and explain their arguments and their beliefs. They've had that stripped away from them. Or for some, maybe it never formed. And that's why they behave like toddlers. I mean, what you see, the signs and stuff, that is an adult toddler. That is an adult version of just pounding your feet on the floor and throwing your fist around or laying down on the ground and kicking and screaming because you just don't know what else to do. And so the adult version of it is to get together with other toddlers and make signs that say mean things like, no kings, yeah. And that's it. That's the adult version of a temper tantrum. And it is a very sad reflection of where we are as a society. And is it any wonder so many people in this country are completely reliant on others to take care of them in one capacity or another? When you have the inability as an adult to think, odds are you are going to be incapable of taking care of yourself. And so you're going to be convinced, I have to be reliant on government. The hilarious thing about all of this, these are people that are for big government. They're out there. Part of the reason that they say they're protesting Donald Trump is claims that he's cutting parts of government. So he's a king that wants less government. So more, the individual citizens having greater charge of themselves as opposed to government being in charge of them. I mean, everything about their arguments fall apart with just very basic observations. And I don't think that they have the ability, they certainly don't have the willingness, but I don't think many of them have the ability to understand. It is a mental disorder. This is something Michael Savage used to say, but really by definition, there is a mental disability there within those people. And a lot of them, it's not their fault, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Got weather coming up here in just a couple of moments. Right now, the latest news update.
In the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies. It'll be breezy as well with a high near 76. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 44. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 66. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 70.
Congressman Burleson is joining us. Hey, how's it going there, sir?
I'm doing great. I love that song in the background.
I know,
It's
it's
one of my
nice,
favorites.
isn't it? Yeah, Sarah's put some great stuff into rotation for us. So were you a participant in any of the No Kings events?
Oh, yeah, I know. I had better things to do. I was that Saturday. Got to go speak to a group of probably over 100 individuals in Berry County, in Shell Knob, and these are real patriots. I mean, these are people that you know that love this country, and they don't look weird as well. I mean, these are a lot of them are veterans, and just it really you go down to Shell Knob, you're going to be given a lot of hope and at least encouragement that not everybody's out there is crazy.
You know, the funny thing about, I mean, it's yet another contradiction, but these No Kings people, they act as if people that are MAGA folks are these authoritarians, yet there's no one who just wants to be left alone. Just like, leave us alone. It's the people on the left
Yeah.
who claim that Trump supporters or authoritarians are the ones who are demanding complete compliance with everything they demand, whether it's, their pronouns or mask wearing or all of these. I mean, it's a constant world in which they are there telling you how to live your lives. Meanwhile, the so-called dictator supporters are the people like, just live your life and let us live ours. We just want to be left alone. That's it.
Ironically, I mean, they're saying they're protesting No Kings, protesting Trump. If he was a king, they wouldn't be able to protest, right? If he was a king, they'd be thrown in jail just for having contrarian opinions. If he were a king, he wouldn't be able to. He wouldn't be having the courts, basically try to undo everything that he's doing.
Well, and the government,
king, right?
and the government would be shut down.
And if he were a king, he would have been able to just wave a wand and pass anything that he wants passed. But as you can see, it's not easy working with the legislature. So do we want kings? No, I don't want a king, but I don't think there's any evidence that we have a king.
It's absurd, and we were off air talking about some of the insane aspects of all of this, and like, well, kings you don't even really vote for, and then it's like the arguments, unfortunately, that you find yourself making are the sort of explanations that you would be giving to a class of third graders, literally. Like about with the difference between a king and a president. Like, well, kings don't get elected. They, and presidents this and that. And that is in countering the arguments made by the left, you find yourself having to explain things that would be taught to third graders. That's not a very good commentary on the education.
All you have to do, you don't have to look very far. You go to my Facebook page, and any of my posts. Look at all the people that basically, their comments are at the intelligence level of a third grader.
Yeah. It's sad.
Right. I think the thing is that they're so flawed in their first principles, and because they're not grounded in anything that's truly based on fact or reality, or even like a firm, solid principle, that it's really the hive mind, and they don't know how to explain it whenever they're confronted and they're asked a question, what do you believe? So that's why they don't really know. They're repeating the emotional rhetoric that they're hearing.
One of the sometimes they'll ask specific things, and I know Angela Luna had the news report and positioned it as one of the complaints they had is that Trump was cutting health care, which of course none of that is even true anyhow. But even if where I'm thinking, okay, so your argument against the so-called king is that he is getting government less involved in your life. Once again, a complete contradiction of your argument. That's not how kings work. They generally aren't interested in pulling away. Dictators generally aren't more about getting government out of your life. Yet here's part of the reason that some of these individuals claim they're protesting is because Trump is getting government more out of their lives.
Oh, that's great. You're right.
I mean, everything about it.
Nothing got more in your life when it came to healthcare than Obamacare.
Oh my gosh.
A system that said, we're going to tell you what products you have to buy, and we're going to, I mean, it was the biggest corporate insurance boondoggle you could imagine. For all the, people that complain about insurance companies, what did the Democrats do? They passed a law that says you have to buy their product. And not only do you have to buy it, you have to buy the most, these plans that are extremely expensive. So the insurance companies, I'm sure, is thinking, well, okay.
It's so frustrating.
Right?
It is like you've got these real life implications on everything from national security to education to your individual life. And about half of the people who have a say in it are third graders. Like if you say you got 1,000 people and you're voting on these life or death situations, and by the way, 50% of the voters are going to be third graders, and it's like, what do you even do? Because you can't. They don't have the cognitive level yet to understand why it is that you don't vote for someone who says you get to have candy for breakfast every morning, because that just sounds good to them because they're third graders, of course. And that's what we're dealing with as a population. And of course, I mean, you know this, but it's one of the reasons that so many of the founders talked about if we do not have an educated, thinking, intelligent population, then this whole thing is not going to work. And I think we're seeing what it was that they were speaking of.
No, you're right. I think that was actually the topic of our pastor's sermon yesterday, was that this form of government was not, it's kind of using the John Adams quote that this form of government was intended for a wholly religious people, and none other, and that's what I think that Charlie Kirk recognized, is that he recognized that we're drifting in a direction that was a secular culture, right? And so that is, it doesn't work with the system of government we have, and we could go into that, but and all the reasons why it doesn't work, but it doesn't. And so, and it's not to say that the left wants to say, oh, you're a Christian nationalist, right? As though it's like somehow synonymous with white nationalism. Right. To say that, no. The truth is that Christian nationalism is this concept that, I mean, is basically what our founding was made on. You have core principles that came from even the time, in Moses, which the Israelites were the first civilization that said, let's not have a king, let's break apart the power and give it to people that we elect within our tribes. That's a radical concept. And you move up to our nation's founding, and they said, we want to ensure that people have these rights, that they have and that those rights are not given to us by the government, but they're given to these individuals by God. And I mean, that whole concept, you can take that, and yes, you can worship any God you want under that context and under that freedom. Right. But don't forget that freedom comes from this Judeo-Christian worldview.
We're talking with Congressman Burleson. The shutdown continuing on, and I mean, doesn't seem as if Republicans are being affected, which I think is a good thing, by the Democrat rhetoric. I think most people, I've seen these polls that will say, well, they kind of blame both sides. But I think that those polls are reflective of people who just sort of see it as traditional Washington and, well, of course, both sides just can't get along. But when it really comes down to who can stop it, who ultimately in this instance is the responsible party that can reopen the government, that's where, when it's phrased that way, you see more people recognizing that as a Democrat problem. And of course, you have, at least at this point, I think 3 Democrats in the Senate that have voted to reopen the government. And I just don't know that do you know of any sort of, as they say, off ramp that Democrats are looking for at this point? Because generally, even when they recognize, okay, we've screwed up, this hasn't worked in our favor, they oftentimes need a, quote, reason that they can say they changed their vote. Do you see anything on the horizon for them in that way?
I think that one of the things that Leader Thune indicated was that some of the discussions may hinge around undoing some of the terminations that Russ Vogt had done. So that may be a win to the Democrats. You may have a win that they change the window of time for the continuing resolution. They may want to shorten it. They may want it to be longer. But I don't think that their demands about extending Obamacare are a reasonable demand. And
well, I suspect,
and the other thing is, it's just a promise for a future debate.
Yeah. Well, and I suspect a lot of people, so what you laid out there, Thune, aren't ultimately real meaningful things. There's to some degree in the big scheme more symbolic. But I imagine a lot of people listening at this point would say, why even bother doing that? Just let them draw this thing out. Do you think there is an argument for that?
I think that politically they'll need something, as you put it. I think that.
Well, but no, I mean,
they will drag it out even further unless they get even a morsel of something, and not
right.
Even if that's symbolic.
Well, I think some, and I imagine you probably hear from some of these people though, say that's fine. Just let them continue to drag it out. If the Democrats want to continue to be responsible for this shutdown, let them do it until the midterm election or beyond. And heck, this could be a campaign argument for some of those looking to overturn the Senate seats from Democrats or Republicans. Vote for us, give us the 60 we need, and then we'll reopen the government. And I could just see some Republicans saying that there's ultimately, don't give them anything at all. Just let it continue to play out. I don't know that would happen, but it would. I would like to have the opportunity just to see what that would look like and how it would play out.
Yeah, I like the fact that we've stood our ground. I really do. This is unusual for the Republican Party. Usually we don't have a spine, and they usually cave. I watched it happen the first 2 years. Trump is really the game changer. He's given the party a lot more, courage, and so that's why you're seeing Johnson and Thune pretty much, telling Schumer absolutely not.
Yeah.
So I think that's unique and it's fantastic. And I also think it is really disgusting what the idea that you're just to make a point and to demonstrate that you're willing to fight for something, you're gonna make sure that military servicemen and women and people at the TSA and air traffic controllers, some of the people who work here at the federal medical prison, and the list goes on, that they're not going to get paid. And thankfully a lot of federal employees have not been directly impacted because many of them are paid once a month. And so they will be impacted when November 1 comes, right?
Yeah.
And if we're still in a shutdown, there are some employees that are paid biweekly, or I guess you should say semi-monthly, and they've and some of them have lost a paycheck. Thankfully, Trump has figured out a way to make quite a few of them paid during that period. So right now, there have been certainly people that have been harmed, but many people have been held harmless through this. I think that if we get towards November 1st, then people will be angry, and there'll be, hundreds of thousands of federal workers that will be angry, or I should say tens of thousands of federal workers that will be angry and for a just cause.
Well, I think Republicans have finally delivered for what has long been a frustrated constituency on being pretty consistent and together in unison on the messaging and this Schumer shutdown. I'm glad that his name starts with that same sound as shutdown, because that has worked out very nicely in terms of messaging. Congressman Burleson, with this, I know that because of the shutdown and no king stuff, a lot of that dominating conversation. Anything that people need to be aware of that's maybe flying under the radar?
Yeah, we have got some elections that are coming up this next year, and we're looking to identify who is running for, particularly to the Southwest, the 133rd state representative district and the 136th, which is Southeast. So I will be putting together a candidate kind of forum or workshop for those people that are running, so we can kind of identify, hey, who's out there and who's planning to run, and give them the education that they need. And so I'll be giving those details to you as soon as I get them.
That's really great, because oftentimes people who are your average citizen, they want to run, but they have no idea where to start. And a lot of times the fact that they don't even know where to start is enough to overwhelm them into not stepping forward. So having that sort of opportunity for individuals, or that maybe they thought about it, but they don't know enough to know whether it's something they want to do, that would be a great opportunity. So keep us in the loop on that. We'll do what we can to make sure people are aware of it.
Yeah, if you have any questions, and if you have somebody that you think, wow, this person really needs to run for office, and they live in that area, reach out to me through social media, and we'll be happy to kind of
And you
at least have a conversation.
specifically which two districts again?
It's that 133rd district and 136. So these are the two. So there's the Alex Riley district, which is the south middle portion, and then there's the southwest portion, which is Melanie Stennett's district currently, and the southeast, which is Stephanie Hines' district. So those are particularly areas where we are trying to identify who's out there that's running, and kind of get an idea, and make sure that we're able to educate them getting ready to go into the next election.
Congressman Burleson, as always, pleasure. Thank you for taking time out with us this morning.
Thanks, Nick.
Springfield's Talk 104.1. I am Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies. It'll be a breezy one as well with a high near 76. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 44. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 66. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 70. And that cooler weather, it is creeping in slowly. I mean, the low for tonight is 44, and it's only going to go downhill from here. And there's nothing worse than whenever you switch on the heat and nothing happens. You don't want that, and I don't want that for you. And that is why I tell you about Russell and the fine folks over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Now, the Foreman team, they offer fall preventative maintenance programs, service repairs, and new unit installs, plus a variety of other services as well. But now is a great time to schedule that fall maintenance to make sure that your unit is prepared to tackle the colder days that are ahead. If it is time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
One of the greater films that, well, many people see as one of the greater films made was the 1984 film Amadeus. Have you ever seen that film? I know it's before your time.
I don't think so.
So it was the telling of Mozart, and it won 8 Academy Awards, 4 Golden Globes, 4 BAFTAs, a number of other awards after its release. And it's about the Austrian musical genius of Amadeus Mozart, and it's very flamboyant, and it's one of those. I don't know if it's a Criterion collection or not, but it's universally seen, or it has been, as one of the great films. And so apparently the decision has been made by Sky Studios to have a mini-series based on the same material as the hit 1984 film, and it's due out in December. And they have released, apparently, the first sort of promotional trailer for it. And they have Mozart being played by an Asian. Why do these... I swear it's deliberate. I swear these people do it because they feel as if it is their duty to tick off normal people, because they think normal people are racist, and this somehow proves it. Like, in their minds, rejection of some absurd move like this is because of racism. Which, of course, when you throw in the fact that we were talking about Asians, and it was the Democrats who fought forever, and the Biden administration specifically going all the way to court to try and continue the protection of universities to discriminate against Asians. Asians had to go all the way to the Supreme Court. All the way to the Supreme Court. In order to get a ruling that said universities could not say, we got enough of those Asians, so we don't need any more. And this is something that the Biden administration fought them on. And so, to have the left make another one of these moves that clearly seems to me to be just to put a thumb in the eye of normal people, or in their minds, MAGA America, but they use an Asian, a segment of the population that Democrats have long been hostile to, is just an added layer to the perfection cake. Now, for those that don't know, again, Mozart was not Asian. And while it's so weird, because these are the same people that will claim a straight person should not play a gay person, when that is actually acting, because that's based off of performance. When you are talking about physical attributes that, aren't a thing of acting. If you're white, you're white. You're Asian, you're Asian. And here you have a production that is based off of a real-life human being that is Austrian, and then to be like, oh, well, let's make him Asian. Like, what? That doesn't fit. Some of the, according to, there's a piece on The Wrap, which covers film and other Hollywood type productions and so forth. One fan said, quote, I had no idea Mozart was East Asian. It's a good thing. We have Hollywood to provide such historical accuracy here. Another writing, literally not a single person asking for this. Another commentator adding, quote, is this the one where we find out that the true genius behind Amadeus is a paraplegic, non-binary black woman that taught him everything and wrote his music? One commentator wrote, why on earth would we need a retelling of a familiar story when the banger of the movie already exists? Just remaster in 4K, make an annual run in movie theaters. I'd watch it so many times and will watch again gladly. Some fans also less than amused that the tagline tagged onto the end of the trailer by Sky Studios states, quote, believe in original stories. The irony of the tagline, they note, seems lost on Sky Studios. Quote, LOL. They literally ended the trailer with believe in original stories? Really? After remaking, perhaps, the one movie that never, ever needs to be remade. This is just part of the cliches, or the cliche that has become the left in this country. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Ozarks elder law planning is so very important. If you don't, government's going to decide where your stuff goes. I saw last night, I'm watching television, and there's an ad for $199. You can do it by yourself, all on your own. Your will and trust, nothing to worry about. You're going to be able to do as good of a job as people who went to college for, 8 years to become attorneys and who spend every working day keeping up to date with the changing laws and dealing with the litigation that involves this sort of stuff. Oh, yeah, you're going to be just as equipped as they are with $199 downloading something on the internet. Every state's different, first off, so that one size fits all by itself is discrediting. I know that's it's such an attractive thing, just $200, and then I have it all taken care of, and then you think, well, if that doesn't work, then I'll pay to have a professional do it. Well, the problem is you don't know it doesn't work until it's too late. And so then you've not only wasted your money, but you've put yourself and your family in a bad position. My recommendation is you don't go that route. You visit with the folks at Ozarks Elder Law, 10 area locations, and as Lori Rook has told us on numerous occasions, it's a courtesy to get that consultation. You may not even know what you need to do, or maybe you've done something, but it was 20 years ago and you lived in another state and you want to know if it's still valid. All that consultation is a courtesy, and then what needs to be done, they'll let you know and exactly what the cost will be, and then there you have it. OzarksElderLaw.com, also under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. So there's a mini-series coming out based off of the 1984 Amadeus, and they have decided to make Amadeus Asian. And, of course, it just goes, and we were talking off air, Sarah making the point, this never goes the opposite direction. Like it's always a white person that they replace, or like a white guy they replace. There was the whole talk about, should 007 be a woman and so forth. And I mean, I'm surprised at this point, just in a parody fashion, that there hasn't been some sort of production made about some sort of icon of a different, like Muhammad Ali played by, Woody Harrelson, or Rosa Parks, to Sarah's point earlier, being played by Will Ferrell, or something. I mean, they would, of course, just go nuts. Or even if you were, it wouldn't even make sense. That's the thing. Even to try to do it to make a point, you think, okay, well, let's do Martin Luther King Jr., but have a white actor play Martin Luther King Jr.
A white woman.
Or a white woman. And you're like, well, it just wouldn't even make sense. And that's just it. So it just doesn't make sense.
That's the whole point. It doesn't make sense.
Particularly when you're talking about a real life person. And it comes to some of these retellings of fictional characters, and the James Bond thing is as oftentimes, again, with the woman, or, well, could a black person play James Bond? And, you have the historical component to the literacy itself, or the literature itself. And, on one hand, well, it isn't really a real person, so it's not as if you are out of line with reality in that capacity. But sometimes when you have fictional characters that are developed, and they are developed a certain way, it's like, why would you why change that? If you want a different character, make a different character. Make a different storyline, instead of changing who the person is. And so for a lot of people, that doesn't make sense. But at least those are fictional characters. When you are talking about doing a version of Amadeus, Mozart, and you're going to have the lead character be Asian, it's like, that's not even real. Why are you even doing that? And this is what has become of the left. They're just lunatics. And they have this mental derangement that compels them to just sometimes be flat out annoying and do things that serve no purpose other than to annoy. And they will be supported by other people who do the exact same thing. That they love, because in their minds, see, if you're a normal person, again, you're a Trump supporter, you're somebody that loves America, you're some sort of MAGA hillbilly, and they see this as a thumb in your eye. And so those are the people who celebrate. And then you will be the ones who are wrong when you're like, this doesn't make sense. Why are you doing this? You are the one. And there'll be articles written, right-wing conservatives complaining. That's how it'll be characterized. In their minds, it won't be normal people. It'll be right-wing conservatives or Trump supporters complaining. And then when it debuts and on IMDb or wherever else, Rotten Tomatoes, it gets poor reviews because of, at the very least, the fact that the lead character, who's Austrian, is being portrayed by an Asian. They will blame it on MAGA America, that you have all of these racist right-wingers in America that are deliberately trying to torpedo the ratings. The mental disorder, full-blown mental disorder. I'm telling you, Savage used to say it. I know I've referenced it a couple of times. Liberalism is a mental disorder, but I don't think ever people could have recognized that declaration as being as accurate as we just see right before our very eyes today. But just to further demonstrate the lunacy of the left, and it really is the lunatics have taken over the asylum, because the normal people they're purging. They have no room for the normal people any longer. They have taken over the asylum, so the orderlies, the employees, the people who are there in order to try to keep the insane patients in order, they've lost control. And they're being run out. There is a Democrat representative from Massachusetts by the name of Seth Moulton. And he has served in Congress for 10 years. And he's a father. And when it comes to the issue of whether or not girls should be forced, particularly in, like really physical sports, if they should be forced to compete against boys. He said at the time this came up and he was asked about it, I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or a formerly male athlete. Now, one would think that's perfectly reasonable, right? Especially if you're a father of 2 little girls. And you've seen footage of women or female girls that have been injured because of much stronger males who have been allowed to compete against the females. And you're just aware of this. And I mean, it's just normal. Even if you think they're wrong, you at the very least would understand, well, he's got daughters, and so. So do you know what the Democrats are doing? They're running a man who identifies as a female against him in the primary to try to oust him. This is how insane the Democrat Party has become. A father who simply said, I don't want my girls being physically harmed on the field by larger guys. Well, that's just over the line. Not to mention, of course, Pennsylvania, they're going to do everything they can to get Fetterman out of there. Why? Because he is relatively normal. Acknowledging that just because people don't support Democrats doesn't mean that they're Nazis. And this is the great sin, recently, well, it was last weekend, talking about how he has family members that are Republicans. See, he hasn't cut them out of his life. That's what you're supposed to do if you're if you're a good Democrat, you cut out your family if they aren't also Democrats. And he hasn't done that. And so he's a target. The crazies are in charge of the Democrat asylum. some of the best aspects of the No Kings protest is the humorous AI videos and memes that have been put out by the Trump administration, be it Trump or J.D. Vance, using Blue Sky at that. We'll get you in the loop on some of those if you haven't seen them. And it's funny for a couple of reasons. And one of them, I mean, just watching the coverage of this stuff earlier this morning, I'm watching CNN, and they have a report on, among other things, Trump posting an AI video of himself with a crown, flying a jet, dumping sewage on protesters. and it just the culture, the perspective of the two sides of the coin could not be any more drastically different. You have the angry, incoherent nut jobs on one side that are largely lost. Part of the reason that they feel as if they have to come out and do something like this is because they don't feel there's anyone in the Democrat Party representing them. It's something to watch. Many of these elected Democrats that are out there trying to paint this as a positive for them, when this is really detrimental. This is a signal that they don't feel that there's anyone representing them. It's similar to what really compelled the Tea Party to go out there. Now, obviously, the issue motivation for the Tea Party was TEA, taxed enough already. People were fed up with taxes. But at the same time, those people felt as if they really didn't have anyone fighting hard or in a meaningful way for them. And absent having a person that they could look to and feel satisfied, hey, I know at least this person is out there fighting and trying, that didn't exist. And so it compelled millions of Americans across the country to get out there to fill that void. And to a large degree, that's part of what's happening now with these left-wingers. They don't see that there's any leadership. They don't see that they have any representation. And so they can't sit there at home watching MSNBC and feel satisfied. Oh, well, I hate Trump, but boy, I got this guy or this gal in my corner really showing them. There's just no one for them. And so, among other reasons, and that's just part of what is compelling them, they have to get out there because that's the only sense of satisfaction that they get when it comes to fighting against Trump. There's a story about one of the No Kings activists. His name is what's his name here? Some left wing I don't know the guy. He wasn't Sisson. Harry Sisson. He was one of the demonstrators in the footage of Trump's AI video in which he flies over in a fighter jet and he's wearing the crown and he dumps all this sewage and so in the video, it's very clear. I mean, it's a close-up shot of a lot of these protesters, and this Harry Sisson is one of the people who is in the video. And he posted a demand, quote, "Can a reporter please ask Trump why he posted an AI video of himself dropping poop on me from a fighter jet? That would be great, thanks." I don't think one needs to ask Trump why he did this. He's making fun of you. You can't figure this out? This is pretty simple and straightforward stuff. He's mocking you. He's demonstrating that when it comes to all of the meaningful, positive things that are occurring in the world and in the country, you are irrelevant. You are stomping around like a petulant child, along with a whole slew of other petulant children. Cannot articulate any sort of intellectual argument as to what it is exactly you're doing, just hate Trump, hate Trump, hate Trump, and name-calling. Nazi, fascist. And he's making fun of you. That's why he did it. And the fact that I suspect that this person really can't comprehend that, doesn't understand it. And to once again double down on a point, if Trump really were a dictator, this guy would be imprisoned or executed. He would not be poked fun at by an AI video. We've got traffic coming up here in a couple of moments. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 76. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 44. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 66. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 70.
The No Kings protest had some pro-Hamas folks weaved in. In fact, it was known ahead of time that there was going to be a, quote, Palestinian contingent mobilizing inside the network of 265 groups organizing the protest. Specifically in New York City, organizers there embedded in the global intifada to destroy the state of Israel moved Friday to join the No Kings protest planned UAW Labor for Palestine and New York City Labor for Palestine posted a call to action for the Palestine Labor Solidarity Contingent to meet Saturday 11 a.m. at Dart Square between Grand and Canal in Lower Manhattan, and then flow into the No Kings protest plan to protect President Donald Trump. They weren't alone around the country. Anti-Jewish blocs slotting themselves into the No King protest as a, quote, Palestine contingent and socialist contingent, positioning their message front and center. Seattle activists putting it from Providence to Palestine. And it was noted by Bill Maher, and I thought this was, and I'm not surprised he noted this, regarding the fact that Hamas has switched their targeting to the, quote, Palestinian people. And they have been putting the folks of Gaza on notice that they're in charge, and the way that they've been doing that is public executions, lining people up, having them kneel down, and putting bullets in their head. Bill Maher referencing this during his program on Friday.
Have you noticed that now that Hamas has taken over again, they're, what?
Shooting everybody.
Shooting everybody. Where are the protesters? Suddenly, the keffiyeh-wearing college kids are very quiet.
Can't be found anywhere.
This is okay? It's just amazing, the asymmetry of what goes on.
It's because it's all BS. You've got two types of protesters regarding the Free Palestine movement. You have those that have always, and this is the driver of it, have always just been about killing Jews. That's what it's been about. It's been about power and killing Jews, and not about the innocent people of Gaza or the innocent Palestinians, because now, as Bill Maher noted, that they are being lined up and executed by Hamas to send a signal that, because see, Hamas is worried due to this peace deal that they are going to lose all power, because that's part of the peace deal. The 20-part plan is that Hamas does not have any control. That the people in Gaza, that they are going to be able to have their own government, run things, but it cannot be Hamas. And Hamas is like, oh, okay. But internally, they're making sure everyone knows we're still in charge, regardless of any sort of peace deal. We are in charge, and the way they're doing that is dragging civilians out into the streets, making them, and they're executing them. Civilians that they view as being threats to them, to send a message. This is what happens to anyone who challenges our authority. And Bill Maher, and he seems shocked. I don't know that he actually is. All of these Democrat activists out there, all of these, many of them which are college students, waving the Palestinian flags, talking about genocide. Where are they? Where are they? They're not. Because they don't care about the people of Gaza. They do not care. This has never been about caring about them. This has been about the marketing of Hamas. They are not pro-Palestinian. They are not pro-Gazan citizen. They're pro-Hamas. And all of this talk about, well, we're not pro-terrorist or Hamas. We're just supporters of the Palestinians. Really? Then where are you? The only protesting that I observed over the weekend across this country in the name of, quote, Palestine wasn't against the Hamas terrorists executing Palestinians. It was against Donald Trump. You know, the guy who's against Hamas? The guy who wants to remove the people who are executing the Palestinians? This is how completely dishonest that movement is. This is how completely dishonest these people are. Now, as I said, there are two types of, quote, pro-Palestinian or Free Palestine protesters. There are those who it is just about eliminating the Jews. But then there are the useful idiots. They are the uneducated, usually young people who have been indoctrinated into this divisive and hate-filled DEI crap that conditions them to believe that when there's a conflict between two sides and one is white, they are the bad guys. They are the privileged individuals. And so that's all they know is the Jews are bad, the Palestinians are good, and Hamas is Palestinian. And they don't know anything. They have no clue what's actually going on. That's how you end up with Queers for Palestine and the LGBT community coming out in support of what it is that Hamas is doing, when these are people who also get executed publicly by Hamas. They are useful idiots. And, some of you well-meaning Democrats out there that are part of this, you are promoting propaganda and giving aid and comfort to people who are assassinating, who are providing public executions to not just the LGBT community, but the people of Gaza, the people you claim you care about. So where are you now? No, you're protesting Donald Trump, the guy who's trying to get Hamas out of there so he stops executing these people. Congratulations to you. If I can put it in terms you may understand, as you like to break down good versus evil as an overly simplistic way to just paint absolutely everything, this is one of those instances where we have good versus evil. You're on the evil side. You are on the evil side, not the good side. You are not the good guy. You are the very, very, very bad guy. Oh, but you get to feel so good about yourself, don't you? Because look how many people showed up. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company, we had some pretty strong storms hit the listening area on Saturday, especially in the southern portion of the listening area. If you experienced any type of roofing issues, whether that be leaks, yellowing on your ceiling, or maybe your gutters were backing up and just not draining properly, I want to recommend my go-to pals over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, the Pyramid team, they offer emergency tarping services, and they also have free roof inspections as well. And it doesn't matter if you need residential, commercial, or metal roofing services, they do it all. So if you have roof damage, don't go at it alone and don't go with a random door knocker. Make sure that you have a trusted professional on your side that has you and your home's best interest in mind. If it is time to have the Pyramid Roofing Company team out to your home, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
There has been a new comprehensive study done regarding emergency rooms and the wait times in emergency rooms. Some of you may recall this was one of the big promises from Democrats regarding Obamacare, that the average time for someone waiting in an emergency room was going to plummet. Their argument was the only reason that the majority of people went to the emergency room, or no, let's put it this way. So you go to the emergency room, a lot of people are there for things that aren't necessarily emergencies, or they have become emergencies because the people who had whatever the ailment or condition was waited too long. They didn't go make an appointment to see their regular doctor, and so they let the problems get out of hand. And so emergency rooms were being heavily populated by individuals that, if they actually were responsible with their health care and their health care choices, probably would have not ended up in the emergency room. And that was part of the reason that you had these really long wait times, because increasingly people were using the emergency room as their doctor's office. And that a lot of the people were doing it just because they just didn't have access to doctors, because they didn't have, or they couldn't afford health insurance. And so Obamacare, by forcing people to purchase health insurance, was going to change all of that. Now, we'll get into the reason why it did not in a moment, because many of us predicted that that was a very foolish assessment and it was very wrong. And it turns out that the assessment that they were wrong was very right. And the wait time for emergency room hospitalization continues to get higher and higher and higher, and it's due to Obamacare. And rural hospitals at the same time are closing, which is part of the reason that we see emergency room visits increasing and wait times longer, and that too is because of government intervention. All of this, by the way, was predicted by many people because of common sense, because of understanding why it is that people were going to the emergency room instead of the doctor. And by the way, the longer that people wait in emergency rooms, the increased likelihood of people dying. So for all of the rhetoric from the left about how Republicans are going to make people die, that taking away these programs are going to make people die, it's actually, in an actual measurable way, causing an increase in potentially unnecessary deaths because of the increased wait times at emergency rooms. And this just compounded the frustration, so compounded by the fact that this was not only foreseeable, it was foreseen. We were warned that this was going to happen. This is not a surprise. And then these pieces of trash in the Democrat Party that are running around and I mean, they're like, this healthcare system's broken. You guys are the ones who did this. And while it certainly had problems before Obamacare, they took it and they went with the hold my beer approach. You think it sucks now, wait till we're finished with it. I want to share with you some of the study and the realities of what we're dealing with. And this is stuff that you know. If you go to the emergency room today versus pre-Obamacare, outside of some rare exceptions, just on average, people clearly recognize that it has become much, much, much worse.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies and a lot of breeze as well with a high near 76. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 44. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 66. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 70.
There's an evaluation piece off of a new study that, the Daily Wire looked into this, and it has to do with emergency wait times and the real-life implications of the increases, which the wait times in emergency rooms have been steadily increasing since 2012, and Obamacare got signed in 2010. And they open up with anecdotal stories. Colorado woman bled on the emergency room floor while waiting 12 hours for care, bleeding on the floor. A New York man who feared he had appendicitis waited 8 hours while repeatedly vomiting, passing out. A cancer survivor. San Francisco waited 28 hours for a doctor to examine her injured leg. By the time she saw the doctor, she was paralyzed. Man, it's almost painful when this scam called Obamacare was being peddled around, and all of these glorious promises, and I remember going over the stories of the nightmare that emergency rooms in the UK were at the time. They haven't gotten better, by the way. People dying in emergency rooms because of the system being overwhelmed by promises from government and the, quote, free aspect of it, and warning that this is what will become of emergency rooms here in the United States. And here we are. I mean, it's just so sad that we did this to ourselves. There was a new study published in the journal Health Affairs, looking at data from 46 million emergency room visits across all 50 states, going back to 2017. And researchers found a national increase in wait times, with the average wait time exceeding 4 hours. This is an emergency room. Study on hospital boarding of patients in emergency departments reveal nationwide rise in percentage who wait more than 4 hours for a hospital bed, 5% of patients waiting over 24 hours. 24 hours. Now, boarding is the moment you check in. You go into the emergency room and you check in and they get your information. That's called boarding. And that at post-Obamacare, this is increased with 5% of patients waiting over 24 hours. Part of the reason this is so disgusting, for those of you who remember, is one of the selling points that Democrats were pitching when it came to trying to convince Americans Obamacare was going to be wonderful, is that not only would this not happen, but it was going to cut down what was the wait time prior to Obamacare, make it even less. Well, we've seen that, as usual, particularly with government programs pushed by the left, it has actually made things worse. While these individuals should be in a hospital bed getting care to help them recover from a medical emergency, instead, more and more Americans sick enough to require hospitalization find themselves spending hours or even days in emergency departments until a bed opens up for them, a new national study shows. The problem, called boarding, has already increased before the COVID-19 pandemic began, the study finds. But it really accelerated starting in the mid-2020s and has stayed high for 4 years, and not just in the winter months when viral infections rise and lead to more emergency hospitalizations. In the last 3 years, more than 25% of all patients who came to a hospital's emergency department during a non-peak month and got admitted to the same hospital waited 4 hours or more for a bed. During the winter months, it was closer to 35%. And here's what's sad. Many of you who have, in the post-Obamacare era, had to visit an emergency room might be thinking 4 hours doesn't sound that bad. National hospital standards say that absolutely no patient should board in an emergency department for more than 4 hours for safety and care quality reasons. So in other words, by their own standards, they recognize if it gets beyond 4 hours, this is not good. It is unhealthy. A 24-hour or longer wait for a bed used to be rare, but the study shows that by 2024, nearly 5% of all patients admitted to a hospital from its emergency department during the peak months of winter waited a full day for a bed. During the off-peak months, 2.6% waited that long. Incidentally, what wasn't figured into the numbers were people that just gave up and eventually left. The study, published in the journal Health Affairs by a team from the University of Michigan Medical School and the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston, used data from 46 million emergency visits that led to hospitalizations at the same hospital. The data came from the electronic health record systems of 1,500 hospitals in 50 states from the start of 2017 through the end of September 2024. First author Alex Yankee, MD, MHS, an emergency physician at UM Health and a member of the UM Institute for Healthcare Policy and Innovation, said this growth is long boarding times for admitted patients is the most important driver of crowded conditions and long wait times in emergency departments. Long boarding times increase patient safety risks and delay needed care while making it difficult for emergency departments to see new patients as they arrive. Sustained high levels of boarding, as we have seen over the past 3 years in particular, suggests the health system is at risk of full collapse in the event of another pandemic. By 2024, even in the months with the lowest rates of boarding patients, the percentage of patients who waited 4 or more hours for a bed was higher than it had been during the worst times of year in 2017 to 2019. And while less than 5% of patients waited more than 12 hours for a bed, even at peak times in pre-COVID years, now it rarely goes below 5%, even at the lowest times of the year. The peak was January 2022, when 40% of patients boarded in an emergency department for more than 4 hours and 6% boarded for 24 hours or longer. While boarding has grown nationwide and in all patient groups, the Northeast has the highest rate of boarding for 24 hours or more. Quote, our work highlights the need both to prepare for winter peak and to address years-long mismatches between acute care demands and available resources. They cite a report from an ED boarding summit held last fall by the Agency of Healthcare Research and Quality in response to a bipartisan letter from members of Congress calling on the federal government to address the issue. So isn't that, of course, perfect? The entity involved in this that has led to this problem, the federal government, and they're the ones that demand they take care of it because this is how we do things in this country. And it's not just here, clearly. So let's see who made things worse, and let's put them in charge of fixing it, which of course means they're going to make it better because the worst that we're in now was a making it better from what it was previously. Kleinsworth, Nicholas Kleinsworth, a policy analyst at the Paragon Health Institute, said, I think that the increased ER wait times are actually one of the biggest broken promises of Obamacare. Yeah, really? I mean, one of. Cost would be the other. You know, there were a lot of them there. Oh, if you love your insurance, your doctor, you can keep it. Premiums were going to be slashed by like $2,500 a year. It's going to be cheaper. You just think of the crap that they peddled. No reasonable person could have believed that. Government's going to get involved, and it's going to make it cheaper and faster and better, and everything's going to be wonderful and awesome, something that's never happened in the history of mankind. But a bunch of politicians in Washington, D.C. that year somehow managed to do the impossible. The only thing consistent is the fact that absolutely every promise they made fell apart. including the promise that this was going to not only save, but it's going to create hospitals in rural areas so people didn't have to drive to larger populated areas to go to the emergency room. The opposite of that happened. Kleinsworth explained that federal programs like the 340B drug pricing program has actually encouraged consolidation. As a result, we're seeing large urban hospitals buy up small rural hospitals to capitalize incentives meant for rural areas. Now, like most government-driven programs, the 340B drug pricing program is so convoluted, trying to explain it would tune you out and you wouldn't understand it anyhow because it's government and it's a Rube Goldberg approach. But ultimately what it was supposed to do is make prescriptions cheaper for people who had a difficult time paying for prescriptions. And instead what it did was quite the opposite, and not only not make those prescriptions for outpatients cheaper, but began closing the hospitals that they relied on, because the program encouraged larger hospitals to buy up those smaller ones, and then oftentimes they close them. Now, the 340B program actually preceded Obamacare, but point being is it was yet again another government answer. Government going to make things better for you. This was not a difficult thing to predict. One, anytime you start guaranteeing, don't worry, we'll pay for this segment over here, we'll pay for these people, we'll guarantee this over there, you are going to have a run on that good or service. If you have a movie night and you're like, everybody gets, anyone who wants to come to the movie gets to come to the movie free. You're going to have a line of people, the vast majority of which aren't ever even going to make it in there. A lot of which may not even know what the movie is. They just heard free. Because that's how some people are. They take advantage of it. Oh, I have a headache? Oh, I'll just go to the emergency room. I don't have to worry about paying for it. They'll take care of me. The idea, back to the original scam that they were selling, that the reason emergency rooms are, again, pre-Obamacare, when they were much better than they are now, the reason that at the time they argued it was crowded is because those people just don't have health insurance. So we're going to force them to buy it, or we are going to make sure that they are able to buy it because we'll have the Obamacare exchange, which will be cheaper. And, of course, they fudged all the numbers. So this is part of what they're arguing. The taxpayers have to bail it out again. But they claimed that once those people had health care, instead of their normal approach of using the emergency room as their doctor for a headache or a sore throat or they have a cough, they would instead find out what doctors were in the network, and then they would track one down, and then they would make an appointment. And, of course, because of the massive influx of new people and hospital consolidations, and, you had a lot of doctors retiring out of the system, sometimes getting a new doctor, it was 8 months or a year before you'd even get in to see that doctor. But we were told that that's what was going to happen. All of those people that went to the emergency room because they didn't have health care, or health insurance rather, because they were going to be forced to purchase it, would then start doing the responsible thing, taking care of themselves and not going to the emergency room, but instead going through the process of finding a doctor and going to the doctor instead. Nothing about that indicated an understanding of human behavior. Why would a person who had become accustomed to, and again, I'm not talking about emergency room visits where you accidentally cut off your hand with a saw or you're in some sort of horrible accident or like a real true emergency. I'm talking about the sorts of people that would, again, go in because they had a cough or a headache, something that in all likelihood would probably go away on its own. But if not, they could wait and go in to actually see their doctor. And by the time they got in to see the doctor, it would probably go away. But the people that chose the emergency room is their doctor. The idea that you all of a sudden tell them, well, you don't have to do that anymore. You can go through this process instead, that they would go through that process instead of doing the instant gratification of what they were used to, and that's going to the emergency room, that defies a knowledge of human behavior. Those people were not going to change their behavior. Then you add into it, and I don't know that this has ever been studied or quantified, but I can guarantee you this is a component to it. People, because of the way Obamacare was sold, began to believe that healthcare was free, particularly for lower-income people, because that's the way it was sold, that everyone would be able to have healthcare now. No one would not be able to afford healthcare. So the segment of the population that maybe would go to the emergency room if they were feeling really sick, but a lot of times wouldn't because they wouldn't want to deal with the bills and so forth, all of a sudden believe that it would be free. And so so you increase the people that would go to the emergency room because they think, well, it's free. It doesn't cost anything. I could just go. I can go for any reason whatsoever. That's an understanding of human knowledge or human behavior. And that's what we're looking at today. And it angers me that all of us have to suffer. And it isn't as if there is a separate system completely untouched in which we can have a choice. Oh, I don't want this screwed up system that takes forever to see it, because, and we talked about this with Congressman Burleson a couple of weeks ago, you can't even just buy simply catastrophic health insurance any longer. As Congressman Burleson noted this morning, the government forces you to buy these massively overpriced insurance policies that the government has dictated the insurance companies offer in terms of, pregnancy care, even if you're a male, and all of these things that don't even make sense. But you don't have any choice. And the audacity of some of those very same people who ran around telling you that this was going to be the greatest thing under the sun, who have made things so much worse, to have the audacity to stand up there and say, vote for us and support us because we have to fix health care. I don't know when, what world, what planet, but there's got to be a prison for these people somewhere. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. You can find them at hunterhardscapes.com. Plan way in advance. These are premier designers utilizing premier products, whether you are looking at maybe some sort of commercial property, or perhaps, I know a lot of apartments and townhomes continue to go up, and there is oftentimes a real desire to level up, to give offerings, and just create an atmosphere that feels a cut above what some of the other offerings are in the area. And that is one way you can definitely do it, to have outdoor living space for your different residents, and of course for your home, like we have, with a patio area that accommodates my Traeger, and we've got the nice built-in smokeless fire pit that is perfect, and just enough room for potted plants, and it's exactly what we were looking for, and that was because of the beginning development with Daniel Hunter, and just him asking, what do you want to use it for? And then coming up with designs that fit what we were looking for. So you can see many of the before and afters and read reviews from other people right here in the area who have utilized and had created outdoor living spaces, and maybe landscaping enhancement as well, drainage solutions, all from Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. The site is hunterhardscapes.com. And, of course, you can also find them under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. I thought this was an interesting story. Associated Press. A federal appeals court on Tuesday ruled in favor of a Michigan school district in a dispute over free speech and Let's Go Brandon shirts. The mother of two boys who got the shirts as Christmas gifts said her son's First Amendment rights were violated when they were told to take off the shirts at Tri-County Middle School in 2022. The 6th U.S. Court of Appeals disagreed in a 2-1 opinion. So, got a free speech thing going here, and the school's like, no, you can't do that. You can't wear a Let's Go Brandon shirt because, we said so, because it violates our standards. And I just think back to a few years ago where there was the nationwide walkout over gun control. And Parkview, I know, in Springfield was one of the schools that had this, and there were some parents that were a little upset, like, hey, why were we not told that kids were going to be able to leave the school? But universally across the country, we were told by schools, hey, we don't support the message. This has nothing to do with that whatsoever. We just think it's a wonderful civics experience. There can't be any better lesson than exercising your First Amendment rights, and that's what we're supposed to be doing as schools. Isn't it interesting that when it's the other way around, suddenly they'll go to court to lock down those free speech rights of the students?